Well, I hope everyone's had a refreshing coffee and a quick break. All I heard out the back was, now what? So please bear with us while we deal with some small technical issues, and the normal service will shortly resume. But please stay seated here in the foyer, and please stay online with us, those of you that are there. We've got a great panel coming up that's going to be discussing a whole range of topics around breaking down LGBTQ plus travel barriers. They're all waiting online, I can see them, and we'll have them up and running shortly.
It looks like everything is now on.
And we're back.
And we're back. Yeah. So at last year's event, we had Onika Raymond present on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion in travel. If you're asking, now what? Then you'll be pleased to hear we're continuing with this theme in 2022, this time taking a focused look into the travel for the LGBTQ plus community, courtesy of our virtual panel.
Our moderator for the next Adventure Together panel is Matt Skulrud, who describes himself as an LGBTQ internet entrepreneur, having founded a network of LGBTQ sites and has since sold them to focus on Pink Media, a global media company helping others connect with the LGBTQ plus community. Matt is joining us from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and will be guiding the panel through this important discussion as we look to highlight how destinations and travel companies could not only prepare to better serve the community, but also to share some tips, best practices, and success stories from along the way. Please make them welcome now.
Wow. Well, hello, everyone. Just thank you so much for having us here. And yes, my name is Matt Skulrud. I'm president of Peak Media, and simply I help companies try to figure out how to reach LGBT travelers on the internet. And but what we'll do is we'll start with a brief introduction from each one of our panelists, and if we can, we could start with Justin from South African Tourism.
Hello, TourRadar. Good morning from Las Vegas. My name is Justin Barnette. I'm the head of marketing for South African Tourism in North America. I work with a team this side to collaborate with trade, with media, with stakeholders to increase the interest of North American travelers to come down to South Africa as both a leisure and business events destination. Great to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. And how about Jonathan from Osaka?
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Well, good morning. Actually, I don't know what time it is for you all. It is 12:30 in the morning for me. I am here in Osaka, Japan. My name is Jonathan Lucas. I am a public relations coordinator for the Osaka Convention and Tourism Bureau. We deal with promoting Osaka as a destination as a whole and making sure that it's as welcoming a destination for people as possible. I'm really excited to be here and be able to represent Japan and an Asian destination at this event.
Thank you. And Jon Bailey.
Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning here in San Diego. I am a travel writer and influencer, including my own platform called Two Dads with Baggage. And my husband and my daughters and I have traveled around the world. And I write about LGBTQ travel specifically. So welcome. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Well, I guess we can as we get started, especially kind of diving into the very beginnings of folks that are trying to understand the LGBT market. I was going to start with Justin and say, with you guys have been doing this for a while, and I guess the biggest question a lot of folks will have is why? Like, what were some of the motivations or some of the basics when you wanted to start with the LGBT community?
Thank you. So for us, I think it's a lot about finding new opportunities, right? And then places where our value offer sort of crosses into that affinity group's interest. And for South Africa, when we investigate LGBTQ travel, we know that I think now it's more than 7% of adults identify somewhere on that LGBTQ spectrum. And Gen Z is only driving that growth. So within the next 5-10 years, we're going to see just an increase of people identifying on the LGBTQ spectrum, and that is going to give us continued opportunities to develop that marketplace. And we saw that LGBTQ travelers, they are spending on travel. Before the pandemic, LGBTQ plus travelers were spending more than $218 billion on travel. And that means something like, if you thought of LGBTQ travel like it was a country itself, it would be the fourth biggest economy in the world. And then we know that LGBTQ people are out and traveling. More than 85% of LGBTQ travelers have got passports. They're excited to get back out into the world, and travel remains really a high priority for queer folks. And then in terms of our own value proposition as South Africa, as the very first country in the world to have a protection clause to enshrine the rights of LGBTQ people in our constitution, the fifth country in the world to have same-sex marriage. We're the first one outside of Europe. In South Africa, LGBTQ people can serve openly in the military, they can adopt children, and you can change your gender marker to better reflect your identity. So for us, given that our record aligned very much with the LGBTQ group, and of course we've got diverse range of activities, whether we're talking about world-class safari, inspiring sort of cultural immersions, or adrenaline-pumping adventure that really could serve the marketplace.
Well, thank you. And going to another destination, it's a little newer in the market, but Jonathan, tell us about Osaka and kind of the why of how you guys got into it.
Yeah, we're actually really excited to be able to have a chance to talk about this. Osaka is actually the very first destination in Japan to consider LGBTQ travel as an actual market that we can tap into and promote to and bring more people to our destination. And actually, the original reason we got into this was Japan has already long been a popular destination since 2012. Up until the beginning of the pandemic, Japan is experiencing exponential growth in the number of travelers each year. And Osaka is already a very popular destination. But actually, compared to Tokyo, we have more Asian visitors every year. We have more direct flights from Asia than we do to Tokyo. So we have a lot of Asian visitors, mostly from China, but many from South Korea, from Taiwan, from Southeast Asia. And we wanted to find a way to tap into more the European market and get more American travelers and Australian travelers to come to our destination. So in around 2016, we consulted with a think tank, and they actually are the ones who said, well, you know, the LGBTQ travel market is growing. We have these results and these numbers. They contribute this much and this have much buying power around the world. So should consider tapping into that market. And then our own research led us to the IGLTA, which is the International LGBTQ Travel Association. We were absolutely convinced right away that this is what we wanted to do. And so in 2018, we joined the IGLTA. We were the very first destination in Japan. There are already a few companies in Japan that were a part of the IGLTA, but we were the first destination, the first DMO. We were really excited to be on board. And since then, our activities have only just exploded in popularity across Japan. Other destinations are now starting to get on board with LGBT travel because they're all realizing that, well, Osaka is getting this successful with it, we should get on too. So Japan is now in itself becoming more welcoming overall for LGBTQ travelers.
Well, I've seen some of your outreach through IGLT, I believe, on the newsletter and other things. But tell us a little bit about kind of the how and like, you know, how you get your message out there and how you guys have kind of gotten started.
Yeah, we really got started domestically. We reached out here in Japan and said, you know, who else is involved with the LGBTQ market? Who is knowledgeable about these things? Because we can reach out, we can do our own research, but if we're not here with the local community and local LGBTQ experts and seminar conducting organizations, then we're not going to be able to get too far. So we reached out to local organizations, and then we actually partner with a company in Japan called Out Japan. They do a lot of seminar work and groundwork here, getting the word out about LGBT travelers and their needs within organizations as well, how you can accommodate LGBTQ workers. So we could collaborate with them, and they already have an extensive history with the IGLTA. So with their assistance, we reach out to the IGLTA and think up new ideas, ways to collaborate. Osaka has this great thing that we've got going on. How can we get the word out? How can we get people around the world to know that we're doing this great thing? That organization helped us, and then the IGLTA, they help us out a lot too.
Fantastic. And Justin, I know that you guys have been doing it for a while, and I see a lot of content editorial. But yeah, tell us a little bit about I guess, the mechanics and the how of you're getting the word out.
Yeah, thank you. For us, it starts really with trade also. So IGLTA was central in helping us connect with tour operators, travel agents who are working with LGBTQ clients to really let them know that South Africa is raising our hand to say, not only are you going to be welcomed in South Africa or tolerated, you are going to be celebrated when you visit the Rainbow Nation. So that's been part of the strategy to make sure that trade knows that South Africa is ready to be packaged and sold to LGBT clients, whether we're talking about families or couples or multi-gen, golf groups, book clubs, wine enthusiasts. All of those people are welcome to come on down. And then in terms of reaching consumers, right, we have a pretty robust media and influencer strategy. So that's two-pronged in that we work with traditional media in terms of inviting journalists and writers, thought leaders from those different big publications. I was just with the editor-in-chief of Out magazine back in May down in South Africa, showing them around. And then we seed stories there, produce content with the different writers around the experiences that people can have. Then we also do some advertising in spaces like the Edge Media Network. We've done some stuff with them, which is the Condé Nast LGBTQ platform, Passport magazine, and then bringing down influencers really in the travel niche, but in all sorts of other niches as well, right? That we can get into the destination, let them see firsthand for themselves exactly what that sort of Rainbow Nation welcome is going to feel like, and then share that with their followers in an authentic way.
Yeah, in fact, this week, I don't know if you're the one who's been involved. I should have asked first, but the Nomadic Boys, who are two of the strongest LGBT travel influencers out there, and I've seen them running around all over throughout Johannesburg and stuff. Is that you?
Yeah, we've had our eye on that for quite a while to get them down. I actually first met them in person at the IGLTA convention that was down in Florida several years ago. So one of the things that I would underscore, and I know the other two gentlemen are in agreement, is that you have to sort of keep at it. The things aren't going to just happen sort of overnight or even within a year. So anybody who's watching us today that's thinking how they can sort of expand their business to speak more directly and specifically to LGBTQ tourists, it's you making a long-term commitment. It's not just going to be a one and done sort of thing.
Yep. And John, when we're talking about influencers and so forth, that's right in your wheelhouse. But you've been to South Africa, correct?
Not yet, but I'm going to be talking to him soon. No,
yeah,
we've
just tell us
traveled
a little
pretty
bit about your world.
extensively. Yeah, interesting because a lot of destinations seek us out specifically because we write about LGBTQ travel, and because we have daughters, we're often writing about family. Well, now we're empty nesting, so it's both. But I think what's interesting is that they seek us out because they want to reach the audience that we speak to. And my stories are syndicated on MSN.com, and I write for The Points Guy and several other destination and travel outlets. So it's kind of like spreading the story across multiple platforms and finding different angles for the story so that everyone gets their own content. The destinations I've had the most success with tend to have a fairly good idea of what they'd like their agenda to be, and then they work with me to modify that according to our own perspective and needs. But when it's open and left to my own devices, it's more difficult because I don't know exactly what I'm going to find. And I'd rather be led through that process by a destination at least pointed in the proper directions so that I can represent it properly and appropriately. When we have traveled without that structure, we have run into some issues. And that's a very real thing when you travel the world as a same-sex couple, particularly with children, and some places don't understand. Luckily, the world has changed quite a bit since we had our kids, who are now 18 and 20. So a lot more accepting, a lot more open. In destinations like Mexico, Ireland, we just got back from the Alps, all sought us out and wanted specifically for us to focus on that LGBTQ experience.
Wow. Well, it's interesting having you here, because we probably all remember that once upon a time, destinations were just felt happy when they were able to reach LGBT travelers, and that was it. But you really represent kind of, it's not the future, it's the present, but it's what more and more destinations are starting to learn, that we're very diverse as far as the community goes, and we're not just going to a destination for pride and so forth. It's a quite varied mix of folks in our community, and you represent the parents that a lot of folks, I think, are just becoming more and more aware that, wow, there are quite a number of LGBTQ parents out there as well.
And we're parents just like any other parents, and we have kids that have the same interests and needs. And I think that the advice I would leave you with is that it's not just about asking us to come and expecting a great story. It's about the experience that we have interacting at the hotel, checking in, at destinations that we are visiting, cues, even from TSA when we're coming in, or passport control. Is it comfortable? Are they treating us with respect? Are they looking at us sideways? It's those little cues that help us feel comfortable.
Yeah. What's interesting is that a lot of things come up, especially in when destinations and hotels and so forth, and they're starting to make outreach to the LGBT consumer or traveler. They're oftentimes focus a lot on imagery and looking at do they use a lot of their own stock imagery that they've already compiled, or do they do things unique for the LGBT community? But working with influencers, that almost bypasses that entire conversation, because by default you're about as authentic as it gets, because all of your imagery is you, your husband, and your two daughters. Now, if you wanted to speak on that, as far as kind of just your thoughts on imagery overall in the advertising world we're all in.
Well, I know these two will also have something to say about that, but we often have destinations buy our images and want to use them in their own marketing in addition to whatever story I'm writing. But I would say that we want to see ourselves in your marketing. You don't have to fly a rainbow flag out front to let us. It's nice, but you don't have to do that. But I want to see ourselves in your marketing. I want to know that you included us when you were thinking about who you were reaching out to.
Yeah. And Justin, but you guys are in that same kind of boat where you've got quite a lot of influencer content now. So you've but do you mix that with some of the imagery that you've had, South African tourism has had over the years?
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, it started out by looking at our asset library and seeing that we did not have in our owned collection a robust kind of raft of images that spoke to the marketplace. And so saying, how do you go out and find something that's not just a stock image, or trying to show one person solo, or maybe this looks like this could be two ladies who are a couple. And that for us started with approaching some of the influencers and licensing content, just like he was saying. Just say, you see people who've already been to South Africa, maybe we didn't host them, but how can we work together to sort of tell their story after they've been, use that image? Then we started hosting our own influencers, and now we're preparing to do some shoots specifically that will be our owned material. And the only other thing I'll just chip in to say, which I wholeheartedly agree about, this representation matters, and the LGBTQ vertical is not a monolith, right? So if you're considering adding that into your sort of image bank, think about not just two handsome gay guys with great abs or whatever, right? We want to see all kinds of people that would look like us as the people who are going to be traveling to, working with you, etc. That means for me, like orientation and gender, of course, sex, race, yes, but also age, size. Do we see people that are larger bodied? Do we see people that are smaller bodied? And physical ability. All those things are really important in terms of really upping our game on marketing materials across the industry to be more inclusive.
We should have had a whole presentation on the world of bears.
Okay, I'll come back for that one next time.
But now, even Justin, in your world, when you've with everything we've talked about, what is in general kind of the mix that you have in terms of I would just say storytelling, marketing and content versus more traditional, which would have, and I don't even know what traditional would look like. I could say banner ads and email campaigns, but tell us, like, what kind of mix do you have in terms of the traditional advertising versus more storytelling?
I think that it's probably somewhere in like a 60-40 sort of thing. So we do,
Yeah.
with some of the media partners that I was talking about, the more traditional things, we do some work on some banner ads to go around. We do a banner in the IGLTA newsletter. We've done some banners on Passport before with them. But then I also want to find a way to more deeply immerse with the audience that's there. So with them, for example, on that platform, we developed some custom content that said, here is sort of a South Africa travel guide. And then it's telling you, the place you might have heard of first is Cape Town, and here's things to do. But then it takes us off the beaten path into some places that people might not be as familiar with. And then we try to draw the whole thing together at the end by involving typically a trade partner that we bring in to say, this is a person who is au fait with the marketplace. They are well versed in working with LGBTQ influencers all across the value chain and people that understand the market, and they can package South Africa and give you a great price if you chat with them. So it's sort of trying to integrate all those things, the more traditional newsletter, banner, sort of social post, and then deep, rich storytelling that gets us into the hearts and minds of people that may have been in the destination. And then how do we then drive it towards conversion? Because at the end of the day, just like Osaka, our success is marked on how many travelers come through. And as we recover from the pandemic, the good news is we have seen LGBTQ travelers leading the way back to destinations.
Yeah. How about you, Jonathan, in Osaka? What kind of mix have you guys started with?
Mix, you mean marketing campaigns?
I would say storytelling, or kind of the whether it was influencer content or journalism versus more traditional email campaigns, banner ads, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're going back to the influencer conversation, but we've hosted the Nomadic Boys before. We've had them here in Osaka. We had a great time, and we got a very good push from this. We had influencers come for LGBTQ content ever since 2017, even before when we joined the IGLTA. So that is something that we've long been doing. Yes, email campaigns. I think what I really want to most emphasize here is that email campaigns and all of these ways to get the word out there, they're great, but they do cost money. And then budget might be something a lot of people are concerned about. But I think I want to emphasize that if you make stories, if you make things happen, then you don't always need a budget. You just need a story. So a lot of the times, a lot of the content that we've made has been picked up for free by both domestic and overseas media because we're the first in Japan to do this, or we came up with this creative idea. We have a Pride campaign this year. We went around and got all the hotels in Osaka, a lot of hotels in Osaka on board with our Pride campaign, and we got free rainbow water, is a product that a company here in Japan makes to celebrate diversity. We partnered with them, we talked to them about it, negotiated, and they were very kind to offer this water up for free and then distribute it to hotels and accommodations across Osaka. So whenever travelers during the month of June came to visit Osaka, they stayed and then received a free bottle or two of the rainbow water. And that didn't cost us anything extra. We were able to negotiate with them. And so we, used our local network. We reached out to people. We reached out to the local community, and we're able to get this out there. And that kind of news was really picked up both here in Japan and then overseas as well, elsewhere in the world. So you don't always need a budget, but making a story, that's where it all comes in.
Oh, fantastic. I know when we were chatting earlier that we wanted to make sure, were there any questions from the audience that we might be able to answer before wrapping up? We must have touched. Did we touch on it all?
We have one question from the audience that I would love to ask the group here is, how is the safety in countries for the LGBT community when traveling, and how can it be guaranteed?
Anybody want to jump on that?
I'll start only by saying that it's not guaranteed. even if a country is incredibly welcoming, it's not guaranteed that safety. But in general, we're looking at that in advance and making decisions about whether or not to visit a country based on their LGBTQ rights, policies, same-sex marriage. All of those things make a difference. But when it comes to safety, your own personal safety, that is absolutely something, particularly when we're traveling with children, that we take into consideration.
Yeah, for me, I think that people are looking at, in places where orientation or gender identity and expression, things like that, if they are countries where that's criminalized or marginalized, then the LGBTQ travelers' sort of ability to show that public display of affection, share a hotel room bed, or use the social dating apps, that can be affected. We always like to say that a destination's attitude towards its own LGBTQ citizens is a good place to start in terms of understanding the degree of acceptance. And then there is something called the LGBTQ Travel Safety Index. That's a comprehensive study that details sort of the safest and least safe countries for LGBTQ tourism. So that's a good place to have a look to and see what it is. But like anywhere around the world, there are places where attitudes are still evolving. That doesn't mean that you can't go there. I know that IGLTA really takes the stand that there are no places for travel that are off limits, because in so many ways, our presence as travelers in these places where visibility may be compressed or depressed in certain ways is sometimes a beacon to people that are looking to possibly come out, become more comfortable, help change their own neighborhoods, communities, families from within. So I think that, there's nowhere that we can't go. We do want to obviously use good common sense on making sure that we're going to a place where we feel comfortable, and sometimes making sure that we're in tune with the local customs and traditions as well.
Matt,
well put.
We do have two more questions if you want to take one or two more.
Yeah, I'm game as long as we're doing okay on time.
We have 4 minutes left. So any tips on how travel advisors can leverage relationships with tourism bureaus to help qualify destinations and suppliers for LGBTQ travelers? Is there any sort of questions that they should be asking?
We have some good expertise on this group, but I was going to say Jon Bailey. You probably deal with a lot of this at the beginnings of the destinations you choose as well.
Yes, and I think the tourism bureaus are a rich resource. They provide a lot of information and a lot of connections. For tour operators and travel agents to connect with that is a very, very good idea. Oftentimes when we visit a country or a destination, we're trying to help business. So we're oftentimes given a special link or an offer code or as Justin was talking about, there's a special program set aside where we can measure the success of the exposure that we're bringing. All of that comes from partnership between the destination, the tourism bureau, the travel agents or tour operators, and the individual businesses in the market.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
And I think a good place to start is IGLTA, right? Because as a travel advisor, as a tour operator, if you're looking to see like which products, which experiences are raising their hand to say, we want you to come over here. We want you to stay at our hotel specifically. Those are businesses that have invested the time, the resources, the training into the LGBTQ marketplace, and they've got an extensive database there that you can search. We're very proud to have many South Africa properties there. I see that Osaka in Japan is growing in what they have there. There are a lot of places in Europe that are listed there. That would be a good place to start as a basic intro to it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to agree to the same thing. The IGLT has a lot of this information, and destinations, all of us, convention bureaus, we're trying to get our destinations and more properties on the IGLT website so that more travelers understand that, oh, this destination has a lot of options. This destination is safe, comfortable. I can work with them, and they have a lot of connections. So yes, the IGLTA, I absolutely agree.
Thank you, Matt. We are out of time.
Okay. Well, I would say thank you all for being a part of this and for the audience for taking your time out with us. All right. Take care, y'all.